Have you ever felt like you were somewhere else? Even though your body was still in this world, there are moments in your life when you suddenly stop, for no apparent reason, just because of something very vague. Like there is a call from deep inside. It is not loud, it is not bustling, but it is strong enough that you cannot ignore it. A call without words, but with a strong urge that you are not like the people around you, that the way you feel this world is not like them. Maybe you have always felt too much, too sensitive, too thoughtful, too deep. Maybe from a very young age, you felt like you were looking at everything through a special glass, where others only see the surface. You feel the flow underneath. When they say, "I'm fine," you hear the crack behind the smile. When the room is quiet, you don't just hear the silence, you feel it, like a language, a layer of meaning that no one else notices. You don't try to be that way. You don't choose to feel deeply, to think deeply, to understand. It's part of your nature. It's always there. But the world wasn't made for souls like you. A fast, noisy, hurried, stereotyped world doesn't know what to do with subtlety, with depth, with someone who feels like you. So you learn to hide, learn to be silent, learn to hide your strong emotions so you don't seem weak. But even though you try to suppress them, your inner world is still seething, still questioning, still feeling, still understanding things that no one taught you to pay attention to. And that's when loneliness begins to feel less like absence and more like the feeling that no one really understands you, that no one sees the quietest, deepest part of you. But if you're listening to this and feeling your heart fluttering, that's not a coincidence. That's a sign. A reminder that you're not alone, that there are others who carry within them this kind of soul, a soul that feels before it analyzes, understands before it explains, loves before it's loved in return. You're not wrong to feel like you don't belong. In fact, you weren't born to belong. You were born to awaken, to be someone whose very existence is a reminder that there is another dimension to life, a truth beyond the ordinary. And your sensitivity is not a flaw, it's a gift that the world may not be ready to appreciate, but needs now more than ever. If there is anything in these words that makes you want to close your eyes, take a deep breath and exhale as if you are finally touching a part of yourself that you have kept hidden. Then stay, because this journey is not just your story. It is the journey of souls awakening in a world that is still asleep. And here, where whispers become power, where silence holds truth, is where you begin your journey back to yourself. Because when a special soul begins to know itself, there is no stopping that awakening. And maybe today, you are hearing that call for the first time, or the last time you will ever have to doubt it. This is no coincidence. This is your soul's call, and you are ready to listen. You are not lost. Even though sometimes everything around you makes you feel like you are out of step, like you are always looking the other way when the rest of the world is looking one way. But the truth is, you are not on the wrong path. You are just going the other way early. You are not lost. You are awakening. Awakening of the soul is never a loud, obvious, easy to understand experience. It does not come with flashiness, without validation from others. It is a very quiet, very private movement, but it is profound enough to shake up your entire inner world. And it is this movement that makes you feel strange to the life you once called normal. Awakening is not a process where you find something outside. It is a journey where you begin to look inside and realize that you can no longer live the same way. The things that once made you happy now leave only emptiness. Relationships that once felt familiar now feel more lost than ever. Not because you're missing something, but because you're changing. You're being lifted to a new level of awareness. And there, the old things don't resonate with you anymore. Carl Jung once said that special souls are not born in comfort, but are forged through the silent fires of the inner self. You may have gone through long periods of doubt, loneliness, and conflict. You may have asked yourself questions that no one around you seemed to care about. Why do I always feel different? Why do I feel sad when everything is fine? Why do I feel so much when others just pass by? The answer lies in the experience itself, because you are waking up in a world that is still largely asleep. As you become more aware of your emotions, of the fakeness in your relationships, of the lack of honesty in your communication, you begin to lose the ability to pretend. And that creates a distance between you and the world around you. A distance that is not a fault, it is a sign. You are not alone. You are just in a phase where your soul needs to separate itself from the noise so that it can hear its true voice more clearly. And that can be painful, because you are used to pleasing others, used to fitting in so as not to be left behind. But now, you no longer feel like you fit into that role. You want to be real. You want to speak real. You want to feel real. Believe me, that desire is not weakness. It is the strength of a soul that dares to step out of the mold. You are asking yourself the questions that most of the world avoids. You are going inward while the world still runs outward. And that doesn't make you lost. That proves you're on the right path. Awakening is not a destination. It's a constant transformation, a process of shedding layers upon layers of what no longer belongs to you. Old beliefs, old habits, old fears. And with each shedding, you move closer to who you really are. Pure, clear, unadorned. If you've ever felt like you don't fit into the world, know that it doesn't mean you're wrong. It just means you were born to make a difference in the world. Not by making noise, but by being deeply present. Not by making big things, but by being true to the smallest details, from your eyes, to your smile, to the sincere silence when you listen to another person. You're not lost. You've just never seen a mirror clear enough to reflect your inner light. But that light is still there, still burning, and is slowly becoming a guiding flame. And those who are on the same frequency, souls on the journey back to their true selves, will feel you. No explanation needed, no proof needed. Just keep being yourself. Because in the end, awakening takes you nowhere other than to who you truly are. And there you no longer feel lost. You feel returned. Deep feeling is a rare gift, but not one that everyone wants to receive. Because behind the ability to understand others is a silent trade-off that only those who possess it truly understand. It is the price of an open heart, of a soul that does not know how to shield itself from the pain of the world. You feel things that others pass by. When people walk into a room and notice only the furniture, you notice the faint sadness in the eyes of the person standing silently in the corner. When someone says they are fine, you know what they are holding back. When people laugh, you still hear the tiny sound of an unnamed sadness. And you can't turn it off, can't pretend not to see, can't pretend not to feel. That sensitivity is not a choice. It is how you were born. It is how you connect to this world, not through reason but through emotion, through energy, through intuition. But the world doesn't teach us how to appreciate sensitivity. Instead, it makes you believe that you need to be tougher, think less, don't care so much. And you try. You try to play the role of the carefree person, the person who feels nothing. But the more you do it, the more you feel yourself distancing yourself. There is a very special loneliness for deep souls. It is not the absence of others, but the feeling that no one really understands the depth of you. You used to sit in the crowd, in the midst of laughter and fun, but inside there was an unfillable void. No one intentionally made you feel isolated. They just didn't feel the world the same way you did. And so you gradually withdrew, gradually got used to the silence, gradually disappeared from the spaces that made you pretend. You are not weak. On the contrary, you are much stronger than what others think, because you are still here, still open, still choosing to feel, even though you know that it makes you vulnerable. You don't close your heart, even though you've been hurt many times. You still believe in beauty, even though you've seen darkness, and that's strength. There's a saying that the one who feels deeply is the one who hurts the most, but also the one who heals the most. Because when you've walked through your pain consciously, you no longer see suffering as something to be eliminated. You begin to see it as part of the journey, as a silent teacher who teaches you lessons that light cannot. And from there you become a refuge for those who have not learned to stay with their own pain. You quietly support others, often in silence. You don't have to say much for someone to feel safe around you. That's the energy you carry, a presence that doesn't impose, doesn't explain, just genuinely present. But how many people see that? How many people know how to thank you for listening silently, for not judging, for not leaving when they are at their weakest? The world doesn't always know how to welcome people like you. You may have been called too sensitive, too emotional, too dreamy, but the truth is, you are just feeling what others are not brave enough to face. You see the truth, you hear the unspoken, you read the blank spaces between the lines. And yes, living like that is tiring, exhausting. Sometimes you just want to turn it all off. Stop feeling, stop understanding, stop living with such an open heart. But you can't, and you shouldn't, because that is your path. A special soul doesn't come to live an ordinary life. You come to feel, to understand, to transform. Allow yourself to rest, but never think that you need to change your nature just to fit what others expect. Because maybe that deep feeling, in a moment, will become a guiding light for someone who is lost. Maybe in your sincere silence, someone else will find hope. And that is something not everyone can do. So if you are tired, lean on yourself. Know that you are not alone. People like you are still out there, feeling, quietly, but still strong. And in the invisible connection between souls like that, there always exists a wordless strength, a silent affirmation that you are not wrong to feel deeply. You are just living true to the nature of your soul. And that is the most beautiful thing you can do for this world. The awakening of a special soul does not happen in bright lights or amid applause. It happens in silence, in long sleepless nights, in those moments when you feel yourself falling apart into tiny pieces, not because someone hurt you, but because you can no longer pretend. It is when you sit alone in a dark room, your hand clutching your chest as if trying to hold back something that is breaking inside, and you realize you are no longer the same person, but you have not yet become anything new. The moment is not grand, but it is the beginning of the most profound transformation of the soul, an awakening that begins not with action, but with disintegration, the disintegration of old beliefs, of false identities, of the I you once built just to be accepted. And when it all falls apart, you have nowhere to turn but yourself. There is nothing left to hold on to but the truth. There is nothing left to prove but your whole existence. No need to hide, no need to justify. In that void, your soul begins to speak. Not with words, but with feeling, with a very soft, but very clear call. You stop listening to the outside voices. You start listening to what is always whispering inside you. And you begin to understand, every brokenness is not an end, but an invitation to return to yourself. We often think of awakening as something brilliant, a moment of touching a huge truth that changes everything instantly. But in reality, it rarely happens that way. Soul awakening is a process of grinding. It is each time you dare to face your darkness without running away. It is each time you choose to forgive, not because the other person deserves it, but because you no longer want to carry that burden. It is every moment you speak your truth, live your truth, even if it means being misunderstood, judged, rejected. You begin to realize that the rise does not come from changing the outside world, but from changing the way you see it. You stop looking for others to fill the void in your heart. Instead, you start to befriend the emptiness. You learn to be okay with uncertainty. You learn to love yourself for nothing, just because you exist, and that is enough. Gradually, what once caused you pain becomes fuel for awareness. Old wounds are no longer burdens, but doors that lead you to a deeper understanding of life, of people, and of yourself. You no longer look at others through the lens of judgment. You look at them through the eyes of compassion, because you know everyone is carrying an invisible war inside. And so you no longer try to change anyone. You just live as you, and that naturally becomes an inspiration, an invitation to those who are tired of pretending. A special soul does not need to do anything grand to be meaningful. Your genuine presence, in every gesture, every word, every glance, is an awakening. Because when you live true to your deepest nature, you bring a different kind of vibration to the world. A stillness that heals, a presence that reminds you that being yourself, even in a world that does not understand you, is a noble act. This awakening does not need to be recognized. It does not require an audience. It happens in a private space, where you gradually let go of perfection, of waiting, of expectation, where you begin to accept that sometimes your path will not be the same, will not be easy, will not be applauded, but it is still the only path you can walk, with an open heart, with sincere eyes, with tired but unyielding legs. You begin to understand something important. It is not that you are so different, but that you are living authentically in a world that is so used to wearing masks. And that makes you misunderstood. But that is also what makes you rare. The rise of a special soul is not a journey of climbing higher, but a journey of going deeper, deeper into yourself. And from that depth, you begin to live again, not as a better version, but as your truest version. That is when you stop needing the world to confirm that you are worthy, because now you confirm it every day by being fully present, by loving unconditionally, by continuing to walk, even when no one sees, even when no one understands. And because of that, you no longer need to rise up to be seen. You rise because you are brave enough to be yourself, and there is no greater power than that. There comes a moment that comes to you that is not clear, not marked by an event, but when it appears, you know everything has changed. It is the moment when you no longer feel the need to be understood by the world, not because you have lost hope, but because you have found something greater, understanding and acceptance from within. For a long time, you have tried so hard to be understood, to be sympathized with, to be seen as your true self. You have tried to use words to explain your deep feelings. You have chosen to be soft, humble, even obscure yourself, just so that someone will not feel uncomfortable with your depth. But the more you try, the more you feel the cracks. Not because others deliberately do not understand you, but because there are things that can only be felt, cannot be explained. And also because there are people who are not on a compatible enough frequency to truly listen to what you want to convey. When you let go of the need to be understood, you don't lose your connection with others. On the contrary, you begin to enter a new kind of connection, deeper, more real, with less expectation. You stop trying to fit into someone else's mold. You stop looking for approval. You no longer feel hurt when you are misunderstood, because you realize that it is their right to be misunderstood, and it is your responsibility to be true. You begin to value silence over explanations. You choose to save your energy for what is worthy. And in that silence, you feel strangely at peace. No longer have to prove, no longer have to explain, no longer have to find ways to belong in a space that is not meant for you, because you have found the most sacred space inside yourself. No one taught you how to heal yourself, but you learned. No one taught you how to be with loneliness without panicking, but you sat down, slowed down, and faced it. No one acknowledges the silent battles you've fought, but you know how each crack formed and how you picked yourself up afterward. These things don't need to be told to anyone. They become part of you, not as a burden, but as a quiet strength. When you no longer need the world to understand you, you begin to live with a freedom that no one can take away. You are no longer driven by fear of rejection or oblivion. You no longer act to please others, but out of harmony with yourself. And you no longer engage in conversations that bring nothing but emptiness. You quietly withdraw from places where your presence is not welcome, not in anger, not in sadness, simply in the knowledge that you deserve something deeper. From there you become selective. Not because you are harsh, but because you have given yourself too easily. You begin to understand that your energy is sacred, and that not everyone deserves it. You no longer feel the need to smile when you don't want to. You no longer engage in connections just to avoid feeling empty. Instead, you spend time cultivating fullness from within. And that fullness makes you no longer dependent on being understood. You no longer expect to be seen by the world. You see yourself, and that is enough. You don't need to be defined by others, by titles, by roles. Your presence carries its own value, and you begin to believe it. It's no longer a confidence built on external achievements, but a deep, unwavering trust, built on being true to yourself. And when you live like this, something strange happens. You begin to attract people to whom you don't have to explain anything. They understand you not intellectually, but vibrancy. They don't come to fix you, to change you, but simply to be present. No pressure, no script. Just two souls breathing silently together, and each one's presence is a gift to the other. You no longer need the world to understand you, because you understand yourself. And from that moment on, you no longer live to be accepted. You live to be real, without attachment, without conditions, without permission. And that is the greatest freedom a soul can attain. You don't need to belong. Even though you've been searching for it all your life, for an arm wide enough to hold you properly, for a group of people where you don't have to fit in, for a place where you can breathe freely, without defense, without straining to fit in. But the truth is, you weren't born to belong. You were born to return, not to a particular place, a certain community, or a perfect model created by society, but to return to yourself, to your original pure soul, filled with light and sacred darkness. You've spent so much time looking for acceptance from the outside, and every time you don't find it, you turn inward and ask, is there something wrong with me? But slowly, as you start to listen more closely, you realize you're not wrong. You are just trying to integrate into a place where your energy has never belonged. The truth is that the world is full of places for you to go, but there is only one place for you to return to your heart. From there, everything begins. Every answer appears. Every pain is understood. Every dream is nurtured. Returning to yourself is a journey that goes against the habits of modern society, where value is often measured by achievements, where recognition comes from the outside, where the noise of expectations constantly overwhelms the call from within. But you are no longer running after, no longer chasing perfection, no longer straining to be loved, because you have realized that you are worthy of love, simply because you exist. That is the turning point. It is the moment when you look back and see all the times you thought you were lost were actually the times you were turning to get closer to your true self. All those times you didn't fit in. It wasn't because you were wrong, it was because your soul was asking for a deeper, more honest, more kind way of living. And it was you, in the long sleepless nights, in the times you felt broken, in the silence that no one understood, who touched it. Homecoming is not about landing at a destination, but about removing each layer, each old story that you have put on, just to survive. It is a journey back to face the original person inside you, the person who has always known who he is, what he wants, and what he deserves. You no longer want to stand out. You just want to be real. You no longer want to be crowded. You just need to be right. You understand that it is better to sit alone in silence and be yourself than to stand in the crowd and have to trade your nature for acceptance. From that deep place, a peace begins to bloom. Not the false peace of avoiding pain, but the peace that comes from facing everything without fear. You do not need to try to heal the past. Do not need to rush to grasp the future. You just need to be present. Here, right now, with all the honesty you have. You begin to walk at your own pace. No rush, no measurement. Each step is not to prove anything, but to feel today, am I living authentically? Am I choosing the things that make my soul bloom? Am I speaking words that do not betray myself? And when you live like that, you don't need to belong to anyone or anywhere, because wherever you are, as long as you are yourself, you already belong. That space is not in the outside world. It is in you, in the strong connection with your inner self, in the respect for your inner truth, in the love you give yourself every day. There may be people who don't understand you. There will be relationships that leave. Places that were once familiar suddenly become strange, but you no longer hold on. You let everything come and go as it should, because now you have a place to return to be yourself. And there, you are complete. There, you are loved without reason. There, you listen to what no one has ever taught you, how to live true to your soul. The world doesn't need you to be a copy of something that already exists. The world needs you to live authentically. You need to keep the delicacy, the gentleness, the deep feeling that you carry, because that is what makes you special. Not because you are better, but because you are different, truly and necessarily different. When you return to yourself, you do not just save yourself, you inspire others to return too. And in that moment, you no longer feel lost. You realize your soul does not come to belong, it comes to remind that the truest return is never anywhere else but in your own heart. And perhaps, if you are reading this, your heart is speaking, not in words, but in a very clear feeling. It is time. It is time to stop running. Stop hiding. Stop pleasing. It is time to return and start living. No longer asking for permission. No longer afraid of being wrong, but living as a soul that has awakened, has chosen the truth, and has remembered the way home.